The story began long before the first human ship approached the edge of the galaxy. It started in quiet labs, in dusty archives, and in the minds of people who dreamed of something bigger than Earth. For centuries, humans had looked at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. Most thought it was unreachable, a barrier that could never be crossed. But humans were nothing if not stubborn, and that stubbornness had led them here, to the brink of a historic journey. The ship itself was a marvel of human ingenuity. It was not the largest nor the fastest, but it carried something far more important: hope. Every inch of its interior was designed for the people who would ride it into the unknown. Walls were lined with panels of blinking lights, each one a sign of life and safety. Every system had a backup, and every backup had another backup. The ship hummed quietly, a living machine that waited patiently for the moment it would leave Earth's familiar sky behind. The crew was carefully chosen. They were not superheroes, nor were they famous explorers. They were ordinary people with extraordinary focus. Some had spent their lives studying physics, others mastering engineering, and some simply had the courage to face what no one else could. Each carried memories of home, of families, of quiet streets, of friends who cheered them on from millions of miles away. These memories were a small but powerful shield against the fear of the unknown. On the day of departure, the world watched. Cities paused, broadcasts carried every heartbeat of the preparation, and hearts everywhere lifted with both pride and worry. The crew moved with calm precision, checking instruments, sealing compartments, and reviewing plans. Even as they did this, they could feel the weight of history pressing down on their shoulders. This was more than a mission. It was a step for all of humanity. The countdown began. Every second seemed to stretch into eternity. The engines roared to life, a sound unlike anything on Earth, vibrating through the floor and chest alike. Slowly the ship rose, lifting itself above the familiar blue sky, above clouds, and above the protective layer of the atmosphere. The people watching from below felt small and helpless, but also part of something grander than themselves. The ship moved with grace, almost as if it understood that it was carrying dreams as well as humans. As the ship left the solar system, silence fell inside. There was no applause, no cheering, only the soft hum of life support and the occasional click of buttons. The stars outside seemed closer here than they ever did from Earth, and yet they were still impossibly far. Some crew members stared out through the reinforced windows, letting their eyes adjust to the endless black dotted with light. It was beautiful, terrifying, and humbling all at once. The first days were routine, filled with checks and small adjustments. But even in routine, there was wonder. Humans saw things no one had ever seen before. Distant suns casting strange glows, asteroid fields glittering like scattered gems, and faint whispers of radiation that danced across the ship's sensors. Every discovery was a reminder that the universe was alive in ways they could not yet understand. And every day, the barrier that had once seemed unbreakable loomed closer, a mysterious wall at the edge of everything humans knew. But it was not just the universe that challenged them. Within the ship, tensions rose quietly. Long hours, limited space, and constant responsibility weighed on every crew member. Arguments flared over small details. A sequence of repairs, a misread instrument, or a disagreement about the best path forward. Yet, despite these moments of frustration, there was a strong sense of trust. They all knew that beyond this point, they had to depend on each other completely. Lives were not just connected by mission protocols. They were connected by choice and by courage. One evening, as the artificial sun in the ship dimmed to simulate night, a crew member walked slowly down the corridor, stopping to look out at the infinite darkness. It was a moment of reflection. They thought about family back on Earth, about how small and fragile humans were, yet how unstoppable their curiosity could be. The thought lingered. No one knew if they would return. And yet even in that uncertainty, there was a strange comfort. To face the unknown was terrifying, but to not try at all would have been worse. Then came the first sign that the barrier was near. Instruments began picking up strange readings, waves of energy that did not match anything in their charts. Lights flickered briefly, and the ship's hum shifted subtly as if it were aware of the strange force approaching. The crew gathered around the main console, eyes wide, hearts pounding. This was it, the moment that every scientist, every engineer, and every dreamer had imagined. The barrier was no longer a distant theory. It was real, and it was waiting for them. The ship slowed as it approached the threshold. Outside, space seemed to bend and shimmer, as if the universe itself were warning them to turn back. Inside, the crew held their breath. There was no room for panic, only careful calculation. Every lever, every screen, every decision mattered. And then, with a final pulse from the engines, the ship pushed forward. The barrier pressed against them, but they moved through it. Slowly, tremblingly, the unbreakable became broken. Humanity had passed beyond the known, and the universe stretched out ahead like an uncharted ocean. For a moment, silence returned. The stars beyond the barrier seemed unfamiliar, their light strange and bright. A sense of awe filled the ship. They had done what no one thought possible. Yet beneath the pride and relief there was a new feeling. Uncertainty. The universe beyond the barrier was vast, and it was not waiting for humans to understand it. Every shadow could hold a secret, every planet a challenge, every signal a mystery. And still the crew pressed forward, guided by curiosity, courage, and the unshakable human spirit that had brought them this far. As the first part of their journey came to an end, the crew gathered together, not for protocol, but for a quiet moment of shared humanity. They did not speak of fame or reward or recognition. They spoke of wonder, of fear, and of the bond that had grown between them. The galaxy beyond the barrier was waiting, full of unknown dangers and unknown beauty, but the humans inside the ship were ready to meet it, not as conquerors but as explorers, as witnesses, and as the first of their kind to step into the vast silence of the unknown. The moment the ship passed through the barrier, the crew felt it in their bones. It was not like leaving Earth's atmosphere, or even venturing into deep space. The barrier had been a legend, a theoretical line that no human or machine had ever crossed, and now they were beyond it. The blackness outside the windows was different here, deeper, thicker, almost tangible. Stars appeared unfamiliar, their colors sharper, their light bending in ways that defied everything the crew had learned. The ship's instruments immediately went to work, scanning and measuring every anomaly. Readings flickered across screens in a language that was partly known, partly alien. Energy levels spiked and dropped unpredictably. Gravity fluctuations hinted at phenomena that could warp matter itself. Every beep and blink reminded the crew that they were no longer in a familiar universe. Even the air inside the ship seemed to carry a weight of excitement and tension, a mixture of fear and awe that made hearts pound harder than normal. The crew gathered at the main observation deck. They could see a cluster of distant suns that seemed to dance in the void, as if moving to some rhythm no human had ever imagined. One scientist, who had spent years studying stellar formations, whispered in disbelief, "It's alive in a way." No one disagreed. There was a strange pulse to this new region of space, subtle but undeniable. It was like staring into the heart of something vast, ancient, and aware. Despite the beauty, the environment beyond the barrier was dangerous. Meteoroids, floating debris, and unpredictable energy storms appeared without warning. The ship shuddered once when a small asteroid passed dangerously close, sending sparks along a sensor array. The crew moved quickly, checking instruments and adjusting shields. Their hands shook slightly, not from fear alone, but from the thrill of facing a challenge that no human had ever encountered. Every decision mattered here. Every mistake could be fatal. Communication with Earth became tricky. Signals were delayed and distorted, making conversations fragmented. The team spoke in short, careful bursts, focusing on immediate needs rather than small talk. Yet even in these moments, humanity's persistence shone. Someone always suggested experiments, observations, or ideas for adapting to the strange conditions. Even in the vast silence of the uncharted cosmos, the human spirit remained active, curious, and unyielding. On the third day, the ship detected a peculiar energy signature. It was unlike anything in known space, an oscillating wave that seemed to respond to the ship's presence. The crew debated its origin. Some thought it was a natural phenomenon, a quirk of this alien region. Others suggested it might be artificial, a remnant of a civilization that had passed this way long before humans existed. Regardless, the signal drew their attention, guiding the ship toward it. As they approached, the structure, or anomaly, revealed itself. At first it appeared as a glowing cloud, shifting and shimmering with colors beyond the visible spectrum. It was beautiful but unsettling, as if it was aware of the ship, observing it silently. The ship's AI analyzed it, but even the most advanced algorithms could not make sense of the readings. The anomaly's energy seemed intelligent, organized, yet entirely different from anything the humans had ever seen. The crew held a meeting in the observation room, trying to decide their next move. There were no easy answers. Moving closer could reveal groundbreaking discoveries, but it also carried unknown risks. One crew member reminded the group that their mission was exploration, not confrontation. Another emphasized caution, noting that curiosity without care could be fatal. After hours of discussion, a decision was made. They would approach slowly, maintain full shields, and observe before attempting contact. As the ship moved closer, subtle changes became apparent. Light patterns shifted almost like a message. The air inside the ship seemed to hum faintly, and the crew could feel vibrations in their bodies that had no physical source. Some felt a tingle along their skin, a sensation that was hard to describe. Was it fear, excitement, or something else entirely? No one could say, but all agreed on one thing. They were witnessing something extraordinary. Sleep became difficult. The crew rotated shifts, but even those off duty found it hard to rest. Dreams were vivid, filled with strange landscapes, alien cities, and stars that moved like living creatures. Some awoke with new ideas for experiments or sudden insights about the anomaly. It was as if the environment beyond the barrier affected more than just their instruments. It was affecting them directly, reshaping perception, awareness, and even imagination. On the seventh day beyond the barrier, the anomaly seemed to react. The glowing shifts intensified, forming patterns reminiscent of structures, grids, and symbols. The crew realized it might not be random at all. This was intelligent, something observing and perhaps communicating, but in a way no human language could capture. The moment was both exhilarating and frightening. They were no longer just explorers. They were the first humans in contact with something truly alien. Despite the wonder, challenges persisted. Navigation was difficult because the usual rules of physics seemed to bend here. Engines had to adjust constantly to irregular gravitational fields. Energy shields required frequent recalibration to withstand sudden surges. Equipment failed unpredictably, forcing the crew to improvise. Even small repairs felt like monumental achievements, and each success reminded them of how fragile human life was in this vast, unknown space. Yet through all the danger and uncertainty, a strong sense of camaraderie grew. The crew shared stories of Earth, memories of childhood, and visions of what humanity could become. Laughter echoed through the halls during moments of relief, and quiet comfort spread during tense hours. They were bound together not just by mission, but by the recognition that each life mattered, that each person's courage and skill was essential. They were alone in an alien region, yet not alone in spirit. By the end of the second week, the anomaly, or whatever it was, had revealed more complexity. It seemed to have layers, internal movement, and structures that hinted at purpose. The crew could sense that they were just at the edge of understanding, peering into a puzzle far larger than human minds had ever faced. Every observation raised new questions. Every answer seemed to lead to 10 more mysteries. The human ship floated in that strange, new space, both small and remarkable. It was a fragile vessel carrying curiosity, courage, and dreams of an entire species. Outside, the anomaly pulsed silently, observing, waiting. Inside, the crew prepared for what came next, knowing that beyond this point nothing would be predictable, nothing would be safe, and nothing would ever feel the same again. They were explorers, yes, but more than that. They were witnesses to the universe's deepest secrets, standing at the threshold of discovery that could redefine humanity forever. Days beyond the galactic barrier, the human ship moved cautiously through a region that seemed alive in ways no one could explain. The anomaly they had been observing continued to pulse and shift, sending waves of energy that danced across the ship's instruments. Every reading suggested intelligence, yet it was unlike anything recorded before. The crew knew they were approaching a critical moment. First contact. The weight of that possibility settled on them quietly, like a shadow over every decision. No one spoke much during the initial approach. Every crew member focused on observation, carefully monitoring shields, propulsion, and environmental systems. Eyes followed the strange light patterns on the observation screens. Some shapes seemed almost architectural, with lines and angles that hinted at deliberate design. The ship's AI could identify structure-like formations, but could not interpret function or intent. It simply labeled them as anomalous. That word did not feel adequate. As the ship drew closer, the glow of the structure, or entity, shifted and responded. It was almost as if it was aware of the ship's presence. Lights flickered along unknown surfaces, and faint vibrations traveled through the hull. The sensation was subtle, but it was undeniable. Crew members exchanged glances, each feeling the same mixture of fear and wonder. "It's watching us," one whispered, not as a warning, but as an acknowledgement of the profound moment. The team began scanning more carefully. Sensors detected metal-like elements, faint energy pulses, and materials that did not match anything known in human science. The structure appeared enormous, larger than anything humanity had built. Yet there was no sound, no movement in a conventional sense. It seemed frozen yet alive in a way that defied logic. The crew realized they were facing something that had likely survived or been abandoned for millions of years. Time itself felt different here. The ship circled the anomaly, keeping a cautious distance. Decisions were difficult. On one hand, approaching closer might provide answers, perhaps even allow communication. On the other hand, the risk was unknown. A single misstep could destroy the ship or provoke a reaction they could not predict. Debate filled the control room. Some suggested scanning from afar, mapping every surface before attempting closer inspection. Others argued that hesitation might waste the unique opportunity to witness the first alien intelligence humans had ever encountered. Eventually, a consensus formed. The ship would maintain a safe orbit while sending detailed scans and signals. The crew hoped to establish communication, even a simple acknowledgement, without endangering themselves. The first signals were basic, patterns of light and sound, mathematical sequences intended to show intelligence without threat. For hours they waited. There was no response. Frustration and doubt crept in, but curiosity held firm. Patience was the only path forward. On the second day of this cautious approach, something remarkable happened. The anomaly responded. The structure's glow shifted into repeating patterns, intricate designs that suggested deliberate arrangement. The vibrations in the hull grew stronger, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat or signal. The crew's instruments struggled to interpret it. No human language, code, or algorithm could fully capture the complexity of the patterns. Yet it was undeniable. The anomaly was attempting communication. The reaction sparked a mixture of excitement and fear. Some crew members were exhilarated, pointing out patterns on screens and hypothesizing about their meaning. Others were silent, watching with tense anticipation. The ship's captain reminded everyone to stay calm, to observe, and to document everything. This was more than a discovery. It was a moment that could define humanity's understanding of life beyond Earth. Every detail mattered. To understand the structure better, the crew decided to adjust the ship's orbit closer. The glow intensified as they moved, and the energy pulses became sharper, almost like a conversation. Sensors recorded fluctuations that suggested technology far beyond human capability. Machines or devices operating with precision at scales that human minds struggled to imagine. The crew realized that they were witnessing remnants of a civilization that had mastered something extraordinary. Life inside the ship took on a new rhythm. Sleep cycles were shortened because no one wanted to miss a single change in the anomaly. Observations became conversations, debates, and sometimes arguments, as interpretations varied. Some believed the patterns represented a map, guiding humans to something. Others thought it was a warning or a test, measuring human patience, intelligence, or morality. Every theory had merit and none could be proven. Yet despite uncertainty, the crew felt privileged simply to witness it. A particularly quiet moment occurred when one crew member stared through the observation window at the structure, now illuminated in alien light that shifted with subtle pulses. "It's beautiful," they said softly. "It's not just a machine or a building. It feels alive," the words resonated. Each person felt the same awe. For the first time, they sensed that the universe beyond the barrier was not empty or indifferent. It was full of life, intelligence, and mysteries waiting for humans to recognize them. The first true challenge came when a sudden surge of energy erupted from the structure. Lights flickered across the ship, alarms sounded briefly, and instruments went haywire. The surge was brief but intense. Crew members rushed to recalibrate sensors and shields. It was a reminder that curiosity carried danger. Even in the wonder of first contact, humans were vulnerable. The anomaly was not passive. It could affect the ship directly or indirectly, and the crew had to respect that power. After stabilizing systems, the crew reviewed the data. The energy surge seemed deliberate, structured in a way that suggested intelligence. It was not destructive for no reason. It was measured. The team speculated. Perhaps it was a test, assessing whether the humans were capable of understanding or even worthy of deeper interaction. The thought brought both humility and determination. Humans had survived countless challenges, but nothing in history had prepared them for this encounter. Over the next several days, the anomaly continued to display responses. Some were subtle, a flicker of light, a shift in energy signature. Others were more pronounced, with pulsing waves that seemed almost like emotion, though no one could be certain. The crew documented everything meticulously. Each recording, each measurement could hold clues to understanding. Every observation felt like a step closer to unraveling a puzzle that spanned millions of years of cosmic history. Despite the focus on science and discovery, human emotions surfaced naturally. Some crew members felt fear, imagining worst-case scenarios. Others felt longing, thinking about what life beyond this encounter might mean for Earth. There were moments of quiet camaraderie, shared stories and small acts of comfort, someone passing a warm drink, a reassuring hand on a shoulder, laughter breaking the tension for just a moment. These human moments grounded them, reminding everyone that they were explorers, yes, but also people carrying the hopes and fragility of humanity. On the 12th day near the anomaly, the crew witnessed something extraordinary. A portion of the structure appeared to shift, forming a recognizable pattern. It resembled a portal or gateway, not in the human sense, but as a deliberate arrangement that suggested movement, access, or invitation. The ship's sensors struggled to capture all the details. Some crew members felt exhilarated, while others were apprehensive. It was a clear sign that the anomaly was not static. It had purpose and possibly intent. Discussions turned to next steps. Should the ship move closer, risking the unknown? Or should they maintain distance, observing and analyzing further? Opinions were divided. Some argued that hesitation might waste a rare opportunity. Others stressed caution, citing the dangers of entering an alien system without understanding the consequences. Eventually, the captain decided on a balanced approach. They would move closer slowly with full shields active and maintain constant observation. Every action was deliberate, measured, and respectful. As the ship approached the newly revealed section of the anomaly, the energy waves intensified, forming patterns that almost resembled communication attempts. The crew could feel subtle vibrations in their bodies, not painful but undeniable. Some described the sensation as a resonance, like being attuned to a hidden rhythm in space. No one had experienced anything like it. It was a reminder that the universe beyond the barrier operated under rules humans had only begun to imagine. By the end of Part 3, the crew understood one thing clearly. They were not alone, and they were in the presence of intelligence far beyond human comprehension. This intelligence had chosen to reveal itself slowly, carefully, as if testing, observing, or inviting humans to understand. The stakes were enormous. The discovery could change humanity's understanding of life, consciousness, and its place in the cosmos. Yet with all the wonder and excitement, there was a quiet, shared realization. The journey was just beginning, and the true mysteries still lay ahead. The days beyond the barrier had already tested the crew in ways they could never have imagined. The anomaly, glowing, pulsing, and alive in ways no human understanding could fully grasp, continued to surprise them. But now, after careful observation and countless measurements, the ship was close enough to attempt something bold, a direct exploration. The crew knew this could change everything, yet they also understood the risks. Stepping closer meant stepping into the unknown, and the unknown by nature could be dangerous. Preparation began immediately. The ship's airlocks were checked, protective suits inspected, and all instruments recalibrated. Every detail mattered. The crew held briefings to discuss strategy, to anticipate potential hazards, and to ensure that every decision was deliberate. They spoke of their hopes and fears, of what humanity might learn from this encounter, and of what might be lost if they failed. There was no bravado, only careful calculation, guided by experience, training, and the shared understanding that their actions represented the first contact of humans with something beyond imagination. When the ship moved closer, the anomaly revealed more of itself. It was no longer just a glowing mass. Layers of structure became visible, Some sections resembled architecture, with patterns that suggested corridors, chambers, and mechanisms. Yet it was alien in every sense, impossible to compare to anything humans had built. Surfaces shimmered with iridescent energy, and the light seemed to shift with intelligence as if it were aware of the ship's approach. Every observation caused both wonder and anxiety. The structure was beautiful yet imposing, inviting yet dangerous. The decision was made to send a small exploratory shuttle. 2 crew members volunteered to pilot it, stepping into the unknown while the main ship remained in orbit. The airlock hissed open and the shuttle detached, gliding silently toward the alien formation. The pilots felt a mix of exhilaration and nervousness. Every instrument on the shuttle displayed readings that defied human science, energy flows that bent space, materials that shifted properties in real time, and patterns that suggested movement or life in ways that could not be confirmed. As the shuttle entered the outer layers of the anomaly, the crew witnessed something extraordinary. Some panels of the structure shifted, revealing spaces that seemed to be intentionally empty. There were chambers filled with what appeared to be devices, some mechanical, some energy-based, that pulsed with a slow, deliberate rhythm. The structure felt alive, yet it was not organic in the way humans understood life. It was something entirely new, a combination of intelligence, technology, and design that challenged every assumption about the universe. Exploration was slow and cautious. Every step required observation, measurement, and adjustment. The pilots noticed faint inscriptions on certain panels, patterns that suggested meaning but could not be deciphered. They were geometric, symmetrical, almost like a language, but not one humans could read. Attempts to communicate with the structure produced only subtle responses, pulses of light, vibrations, and shifts in energy. The structure seemed to understand interaction, yet remained enigmatic, keeping its ultimate purpose hidden. Inside one chamber, the crew discovered artifacts that suggested this civilization had once thrived. There were devices that seemed capable of immense energy manipulation, machines that could bend gravity or convert matter in ways that humans had only theorized. Some panels displayed faint holographic projections, images of stars, planets, and systems that appeared meticulously catalogued. It became clear that this civilization had explored far beyond its homeworld, much like humanity was now attempting to do. The realization was both humbling and inspiring. The crew also found signs of a struggle or disaster. Certain sections were damaged, energy lines severed, and parts of the structure abandoned. It was unclear what had happened, but it was evident that this intelligence had faced dangers beyond comprehension. The discovery filled the explorers with a mix of awe and caution. Humanity might one day reach this level of technology, but the risks were real, and the unknown forces of the universe were not forgiving. Throughout the exploration, the human spirit remained at the center. The crew shared quiet moments of reflection, discussing the meaning of what they were witnessing. Some spoke of hope, the possibility that humans could learn from this civilization, perhaps even avoid the same fate. Others spoke of fear, the reminder that even advanced intelligence could be fragile when confronted with the vastness of space. Conversations were honest, personal, and deeply human, reminding everyone that discovery was not just about science, but about understanding the universe and themselves. The anomaly seemed to respond subtly to the crew's presence. Light pulses shifted in rhythm with movement. Energy waves mirrored gestures, and certain areas became more stable when approached carefully. It was as if the structure was testing the humans, observing their reactions and perhaps even acknowledging their intelligence. The realization was profound. Humanity was not merely exploring. It was interacting in some way with a mind far beyond human comprehension. As the crew delved deeper, the nature of the structure became even more astonishing. There were chambers that seemed designed for thought or study, spaces that might have been living quarters, and areas that stored knowledge in forms humans could barely interpret. One device appeared to contain records of distant stars, movements of planets, and even glimpses of other civilizations. The explorers realized they were witnessing a library of cosmic knowledge, preserved by a species that had mastered technology, science, and perhaps even time itself. Yet, there were dangers. Energy surges occasionally disrupted instruments, and structural shifts threatened stability. The pilots navigated carefully, learning to read the subtle cues of the anomaly. Mistakes were impossible. Even a minor error could have catastrophic consequences. The tension was constant, but so was determination. Every challenge overcome strengthened the crew's sense of purpose and their respect for the intelligence that had created this structure. Over time, the explorers began to piece together a story. The civilization had been advanced, curious, and capable of remarkable feats. But something had caused it to abandon or collapse. Perhaps it had faced forces beyond control, environmental catastrophes, or conflicts that could not be resolved. The details were unclear, but the lesson was unmistakable. Intelligence alone did not guarantee survival. Every discovery carried both wonder and warning, inspiring awe while teaching humility. Despite the alien environment, the crew remained deeply human. They shared laughter when minor errors occurred, supported each other during tense moments, and drew strength from the bonds they had built. Small gestures, a reassuring hand, a shared smile, a simple acknowledgement of courage kept morale high. In a place where everything was strange and uncertain, these human connections grounded them, reminding everyone that courage, empathy, and cooperation were as important as knowledge or skill. As Part 4 drew to a close, the crew had achieved more than exploration. They had witnessed intelligence, technology, and culture far beyond human understanding. They had navigated danger, learned to interpret alien cues, and preserved their own safety through careful observation and trust in one another. Most importantly, they had come to understand that the universe was not a silent void, but a living, complex web of intelligence, history, and mystery. Humanity was small, fragile, and new, but capable of engaging with something far greater. The human ship, still hovering near the outer layers of the anomaly, prepared to continue its study. Questions remained, mysteries were unsolved, and the sense of wonder was greater than ever. Every observation opened new doors, every discovery suggested deeper layers, and every interaction reminded the crew that they were not just explorers, they were witnesses to history, interpreters of knowledge and representatives of all humanity in a vast, unknown universe. As they returned to the main ship, careful not to disturb the structure, there was a quiet, unspoken understanding. The journey had shifted something inside each of them. They were no longer just travelers in space. They were participants in a story far larger than themselves. And while the anomaly remained enigmatic, its presence had changed the way they saw the universe and their place within it. The human ship had been exploring the alien structure for days, and the discoveries were extraordinary. Every measurement, every observation, and every interaction revealed knowledge that humans had only dreamed of. Yet, as the crew learned, the universe beyond the galactic barrier was not only full of wonder, it was unpredictable, fragile, and occasionally dangerous. It began subtly. Systems aboard the ship started to fluctuate. Power levels dipped, lights flickered, and instruments that had been stable for days suddenly displayed anomalies. At first, the crew thought it was a minor malfunction, a glitch caused by the unusual energy environment around the alien structure. But the fluctuations grew stronger, spreading to navigation systems, communication arrays, and life support monitors. Alarm lights blinked urgently, and the soft hum of the ship's engines became uneven. The captain ordered a full systems check. Every crew member moved quickly, analyzing, recalibrating, and troubleshooting. They worked in silence, aware that any misstep could be catastrophic. One engineer noted that the energy pulses from the structure seemed to be interacting with the ship in unpredictable ways. What had been a gentle, observable rhythm now surged and receded violently, affecting their shields and propulsion. It was clear, the anomaly had power, and it could reach the ship in ways that no human machine was designed to resist. Panic was not an option. The crew had trained for emergencies, but this was unlike anything in their simulations. There were no past examples, no procedures, only the tools, minds, and courage of the people aboard. They moved systematically, relying on teamwork and shared knowledge. Every command was precise, every adjustment deliberate. They spoke calmly even when fear pressed at the edges of their thoughts, knowing that hesitation could be fatal. As the surge intensified, the ship began to shake. Lights dimmed, and the observation windows showed strange flickers in the surrounding space. The structure outside seemed almost alive, responding with waves of energy that pushed and pulled at the ship's hull. The crew felt the vibrations in their bodies, subtle at first, then stronger, like being caught in the throat of a storm. One crew member reached for a console, hands steady despite the chaos, and whispered, "We are not just exploring, we are interacting. Carefully, but we are interacting." The first critical failure occurred when a navigation system short-circuited. The ship lurched unexpectedly, throwing some crew members off balance. Instinct took over. Pilots adjusted manually, compensating for the sudden shift while engineers rerouted power to essential systems. It was a tense, delicate dance. Every second counted and every decision had weight. Mistakes could mean the difference between survival and disaster. While the crisis unfolded, the human side of the crew emerged. Stress revealed courage, fear inspired creativity, and cooperation became instinct. One engineer crawled along a maintenance corridor, hands dirty and gloves scorched from overworked circuits, carefully patching a broken connection. Another stood over a console, coordinating power redistribution while offering encouragement to the rest of the team. In this moment, every human strength, logic, patience, skill, and resilience was put to the test. Outside, the anomaly continued its unpredictable behavior. Pulses of light and energy surged in rhythm with the ship's movements. Some crew members speculated that it was testing them, perhaps assessing their intelligence, determination, or adaptability. Others remained focused on immediate survival, recalibrating shields and adjusting power levels. All felt a deep respect for the entity or intelligence they had encountered. It was clear that the structure was not hostile in the traditional sense, but it was immensely powerful, and its behavior was beyond human control. Hours passed in tense silence, punctuated by bursts of activity as failures were repaired and systems stabilized. Crew members spoke in short, precise phrases, focusing on facts and immediate actions. Yet beneath the professionalism, there was a shared humanity, fear, hope, determination, and camaraderie. They were strangers in a strange place, yet united by circumstance, trust, and the understanding that each life depended on every other person aboard the ship. The turning point came when the chief engineer proposed a bold idea. By rerouting auxiliary power to shield arrays and adjusting the ship's orientation relative to the anomaly, they could stabilize the energy flow and prevent further surges. It was risky, untested, and required precise coordination, but there was no alternative. The crew agreed, each taking their position, knowing that success depended on both skill and nerve. Execution was tense. The ship tilted, engines hummed with unusual intensity, and the shield systems glowed brighter than ever before. Every crew member monitored instruments, adjusted settings, and communicated constantly. The anomaly reacted, its pulses fluctuating as if testing the human's new approach. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then gradually the vibrations eased, systems stabilized, and the ship regained steady movement. Relief washed over the crew, but it was measured. They knew the universe beyond the barrier still held unknown dangers. Once immediate danger had passed, the crew took a moment to breathe. They shared quiet smiles, short words of encouragement, and subtle nods of recognition. They had survived not through luck, but through skill, cooperation, and courage. In the midst of crisis, their humanity had shone brightest. They were explorers, yes, but also problem solvers, friends, and witnesses to events no human had faced before. After stabilizing the ship, the team analyzed data from the anomaly. They realized that the energy surges were not random. The structure or entity seemed capable of influencing matter and energy at a distance, perhaps even testing the human's reactions. The experience had been a lesson, a demonstration of power, and perhaps even a message. Humanity was small, fragile, and new, but capable of facing challenges beyond imagination. Every observation, every action, every decision had been part of a larger interaction with intelligence far greater than their own. In the following days, the crew repaired and upgraded systems, incorporating lessons learned during the crisis. They adjusted shields to respond dynamically to the anomaly, reinforced navigation systems, and created protocols for monitoring sudden energy fluctuations. What had begun as a terrifying emergency became an opportunity for growth, adaptation, and understanding. The human capacity to innovate, collaborate, and persevere proved invaluable. Amid the technical focus, human stories continued to unfold. One crew member shared a memory of watching meteor showers from Earth, drawing a parallel between small lights in the night sky and the pulsing energy of the anomaly. Another recounted stories of historical explorers, comparing courage in uncharted seas to courage in uncharted space. Laughter, reflection, and quiet moments of awe reminded everyone that they were more than their roles. They were humans experiencing the profound, the beautiful, and the dangerous. The crisis also strengthened bonds. Fear and shared responsibility created trust that could not be taught or simulated. Crew members instinctively knew when to take action, when to support, and when to step back. Decisions were guided by experience and intuition, by a deep understanding of one another. In the vast alien environment, this trust became as vital as any shield, engine, or sensor. By the end of Part 5, the human ship had survived a trial unlike any before. The anomaly remained enigmatic, its energy still pulsing, still unpredictable. Yet the crew had learned to navigate its influence, to anticipate its effects, and to act with skill and courage under pressure. More importantly, they had learned something profound about themselves. Human beings were small, yes, but they were capable of extraordinary focus, creativity, and resilience when confronted with the unknown. The ship floated in the silent glow of the anomaly, systems humming steadily, and the crew prepared for the next stage of their mission. The crisis had been a reminder. The universe beyond the galactic barrier was beautiful, dangerous, and intelligent in ways humans could not fully comprehend. But it was also a place where courage, ingenuity, and cooperation could allow life to endure and knowledge to expand. The human spirit, in the midst of unknown forces, had prevailed. And while the anomaly remained a mystery, the crew now approached it not just as explorers, but as participants in a dialogue with something far greater than themselves. Every pulse, every shift, every response from the structure was a chance to learn, to adapt, and to witness the vastness of existence with humility and wonder. As Part 5 concluded, the crew reflected quietly on what had happened. They had faced chaos, danger, and uncertainty, and survived. They had learned lessons about the universe, the anomaly, and most importantly, each other. Their journey was far from over. Beyond the barrier lay more questions, more mysteries, and more encounters that would challenge every assumption about life, intelligence, and humanity's place in the cosmos. But one truth remained clear. Humans were capable of rising to the occasion no matter the odds, guided by curiosity, courage, and an unbreakable sense of togetherness. After weeks beyond the galactic barrier, the human ship began preparations for the journey home. The crew had faced dangers, witnessed intelligence far beyond human understanding, and discovered secrets of a civilization that had long since vanished. Every day had brought new lessons, new awe, and new challenges. Yet now, as the ship turned toward Earth, a quiet reflection settled over everyone. They had survived the unknown, and they were bringing more than data back. They were carrying a changed understanding of the universe and of themselves. Preparations for departure were meticulous. The anomaly remained in orbit behind them, still pulsing with strange energy, still enigmatic. The crew ran final scans, documented every discovery, and ensured that all systems were in perfect working order. Memories of surging energy waves and dangerous fluctuations reminded them that the universe was unpredictable. No mistake could be made now, because this was not only about returning home safely, but also about preserving the knowledge and experience they had gained. As the ship moved away from the anomaly, the lights and pulses that had once seemed alive faded slowly into the distance. Yet even as they left, the crew could not forget what they had witnessed. The structure had tested them, challenged them, and perhaps even acknowledged them in a way they could not fully understand. Silence filled the observation deck as they watched the alien light fade. No one spoke at first. There was only the quiet hum of the ship and the collective thought of a civilization far older, wiser, and more advanced than humanity. Even though they were leaving the anomaly behind, the crew felt its impact deeply. Each member reflected on how the experience had changed them. Courage had been tested, resilience had been proven, and knowledge had expanded beyond earthly limits. Some thought about the fragility of life, realizing that intelligence alone could not ensure survival. Others marveled at the possibility that life in forms completely different from human imagination could exist, flourish, and even preserve knowledge for eons. Every reflection carried both humility and awe. The journey home was long, but it was also a time for contemplation and connection. Crew members shared their thoughts and feelings, recounting moments of fear, joy, and discovery. One spoke of the first time they had seen the anomaly's energy pulses respond to human signals, Another reflected on the first crisis when systems faltered and every decision counted. Through conversation, they processed what had happened, turning raw experience into understanding, lessons, and shared memories. Science remained at the forefront of their minds, even as human emotion intertwined with every observation. Data from the anomaly was cataloged, analyzed, and cross-referenced. Instruments recorded every fluctuation, every subtle energy pulse, and every pattern in the alien signals. The crew knew this information could redefine humanity's understanding of technology, energy, and even consciousness. Every measurement could hold the key to breakthroughs that would take decades, centuries, or more to fully comprehend. Yet the human side of the mission was equally important. Crew members tended to each other, offering comfort after long hours, laughter after tense moments, and quiet companionship during nights when the artificial stars in the ship's simulation reminded them of the stars they had left behind. Even in the vastness of uncharted space, human connection remained a lifeline. Courage and skill mattered, but so did empathy, understanding, and the quiet presence of another person who shared the same journey. Days turned into weeks as the ship traveled back toward known space. Earth's familiar solar system grew slowly on the horizon, but it looked smaller, fragile, and precious from this distance. Crew members felt a mix of longing, relief, and responsibility. They had witnessed the vastness of the cosmos, the fragility of life, and the intelligence that existed beyond Earth. Returning meant more than arriving safely. It meant carrying stories, knowledge, and the reminder that humanity's place in the universe was both humble and significant. As they crossed the final light years back into familiar space, communication with Earth gradually improved. Messages sent from the ship reached mission control with clarity, carrying both data and reports of their experience. Earth responded with awe, gratitude, and questions. But the crew realized that words could not fully capture what they had witnessed. They could describe measurements, document energy patterns, and share images, but the feeling of standing before intelligence beyond human comprehension, of navigating crises and surviving in a place no one had ever been, was something only they could fully know. Inside the ship, reflection continued. Some crew members wrote personal logs capturing not only technical details but also emotions, fears, and hopes. Others engaged in conversations about the lessons humanity could learn from the anomaly. One common understanding emerged: knowledge alone was not enough. Respect, caution, empathy, and collaboration were as critical as intelligence or technology. Humans had survived because they combined skill with care, courage with wisdom, and curiosity with restraint. Finally, Earth came into view, glowing with familiar blues, greens, and whites. The sight brought relief but also a sense of perspective. Humanity's home, beautiful and fragile, appeared smaller than anyone remembered from space. The crew felt a renewed responsibility to share what they had learned, not just about technology and the universe, but about survival, exploration, and the human spirit. The journey had been beyond imagination, but its lessons were grounded in the most human of experiences: courage, curiosity, and care for one another. The landing and re-entry were carefully executed. Every maneuver was deliberate, every calculation precise. As the ship descended, the crew felt both anticipation and reflection. Earth welcomed them silently, with oceans, clouds, and mountains spreading below like a familiar yet forever changed home. The experience beyond the barrier had transformed the crew, and they would never see their planet the same way again. What had once been ordinary now seemed extraordinary, and the connection to the wider universe was undeniable. When the ship finally touched down, mission control erupted in celebration. Teams rushed to meet the crew, to confirm their safety, and to record their first words. Yet amid the excitement, the crew remained grounded. They were exhausted, humbled, and profoundly aware of what they had witnessed. Every eye looked beyond Earth for a moment, remembering the anomaly, the challenges, the discoveries, and the intelligence they had encountered. Humanity had reached beyond the barrier, and what they found had changed everything. In the days that followed, debriefings began. Scientists, leaders, and observers listened as the crew described the structure, the energy pulses, and the intelligence beyond comprehension. Data was shared, analyzed, and celebrated. But more than science, the crew's stories carried the essence of the journey: the fear, the courage, the teamwork, and the awe of standing at the edge of the known universe. People on Earth began to understand that exploration, was not just about reaching distant places, it was about experiencing the unknown and carrying those lessons home. The crew also took time to reflect on themselves. Each person had changed in small and profound ways. They had learned patience, resilience, and the value of collaboration. They had faced fear without giving in, curiosity without arrogance, and challenges without despair. The universe had tested them, but it had also taught them what humanity could achieve when knowledge, empathy, and courage came together. These lessons were personal, but they were also universal. Finally, the human ship and its crew became more than explorers. They became messengers. Their journey across the galactic barrier was not just a technological achievement. It was a demonstration of humanity's capacity to confront the unknown with intelligence, respect, and courage. They had seen intelligence far greater than their own, navigated crises that had no precedent, and returned with understanding and humility. And while the universe remained vast, mysterious, and full of unknowns, humanity had taken the first step toward engaging with it responsibly and wisely. As Part 6 concludes, the crew gathered quietly on the observation deck, staring at the familiar blue planet below. The lights of cities, the curves of oceans, the endless sky, they seemed both ordinary and miraculous. The journey beyond the galactic barrier had changed them, but it had also deepened their connection to home, to one another, and to the future of humanity. They had traveled farther than anyone had before, faced challenges no one could have imagined, and returned with knowledge, courage, and humility. And though the stars beyond the barrier waited, vast, mysterious, and unknowable, the crew now understood one essential truth. Humanity was small yet capable, fragile yet courageous, limited in knowledge yet endless in curiosity. They had crossed the edge of the universe as it was known, faced the unknown, and survived. And as the ship docked, as the crew stepped onto Earth once more, they knew that this was only the beginning. The universe had been revealed in part, but the journey, the discoveries, and the lessons had only just begun.